I would hope it would free up our time so we can use our time constructively, doing the things we need to do, not only for the business, but personally. I mean, it's not healthy to work 24/7, 365. It's not healthy. And that is what small business owners do. If we could spend that time doing things that are more pleasurable and things to help grow us both business-wise and as a person, we would just be so much better off, and we could do more. We could go out and do more advertising and do more foot traffic. And like, for instance, we have a lot of housing developments coming up around here. If I didn't have all this other stuff to do, I could go out and hand out business cards and flyers. I could go to church more. I could spend more time with my family. But as a small business owner, we're already pressed for time, and there's got to be a way to make these rules, regulations. We don't have to do so much time on that.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. When you think of a small business owner, what comes to mind? Is it someone managing employees while still being hands-on? Or maybe it's just one person who handles everything. Well, today's guest is exactly that. She and her husband own a feed and pet supply store in South Carolina, and she does it all at the store with no employees. Her husband helped get the business off the ground, and after they went through a tough time, and she's been making it work ever since. But like any business owner, she has to deal with state regulations in South Carolina that businesses have to deal with. 81,000 different regulations. South Carolina isn't even the worst when it comes to the number of regulations, but they still have real consequences, which can cost time and money. And when you run a business by yourself, time's important. That's why she decided to step up and testify in a House subcommittee hearing on the Small Business Regulatory and Freedom Act. This act puts a check on rules and regulations that come from state agencies by requiring certain ones to be voted on by the legislature. I want to welcome today's guest, Gail Nicholls, to the podcast to share the story of her small business. Welcome, Gail.
Thanks. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
That's great. So you run a small feed and pet supply store. So what's the name of it? And tell us a little bit about it.
The name of it is the Red Bug Barn. We're here in a fairly rural area, and we started out as feed, seed, and produce, but you have to change out and get rid of what doesn't work. So now we just do livestock feeding supplies and pet feeding supplies and industrial boots, things like that.
That's great. So all for kind of livestock oriented products.
And yes, and pets.
Oh, pets,
specifically
yeah. Okay,
cats and dogs.
Nice. So your husband was the one who got this business started for you. How did he pick this business?
We are farmers as well. We raise sheep and chickens, and we have raised everything but horses in our 24-year marriage.
Oh.
And we were already buying feed in bulk and selling off the extra to pay for what we were using. So it was just a natural thing, a no-brainer to go into a store.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that's quite a transition, though. I mean, if you're obviously running a business when you're running a farm, but kind of going into like a retail business, that had to be a big change for you.
It was a change, but I grew up working in retail. I grew up taking classes in school to teach me how to public speak, and I am a very outgoing person. So it would have been a shame to just let all that go to waste.
Yeah, well, I think that probably also played a role in making a good person to go and testify. So, before we get to that, so running a small business comes with a lot of red tape. And
yes, sir.
So what are some of the state regulations that you have to deal with that impacts your business?
I actually made a list so I wouldn't forget anything.
Nice.
And there's probably more because we don't sell everything. Like we don't sell snakes or reptiles, and we don't sell dogs. The only animals we sell are cats because we have a cat rescue, so we put our cats out there. But to sell any type of plants or shrubs, you have to have 3 different permits. You have to have one to grow, one to transport, and one to sell. To sell eggs, we have to have a license for that, but we have to have a different license if we sell chicken or poultry, a different license if we sell sheep. a different license if we sell other animals. We have 3 censuses that we have to do. We do a personal, just like everyone else. There's a business, and there's an agricultural census that you have to do if you're a farmer. Now, we did the business census in November, and I got another message today saying we are inviting you to do it again. So I'm going to try to not do that census and see how that goes.
Yeah.
We're going to see if it's really an invite, or we're just saying this invite to make it sound better.
Exactly. But just turn down the invitation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Tax-wise, we have to do both federal and state taxes. We do payroll, we do sales, we do corporate, and that rolls over on our personal as well. And we do that for federal and state. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8 taxes that I am responsible for filing.
So is there one rule or regulation that seems to be the most burdensome for your business?
I would say that if I had to pick, I would say the tax part, because that's the stuff that has repercussions if you do them wrong.
Yeah.
But really, if you think of it as a pie with different slices, that's what it's like. It's a lot easier to eat a pie if you do it one slice at a time. But if you have to eat the whole pie, that's a lot more work and harder to do. Well, for some people. If it's chocolate, I don't have a problem, but
it depends on the pie.
Yeah.
But no one wants to eat. No one wants to eat the tax or regulatory pie all at once.
That's right. It is a lot.
Yeah, maybe that's a new business idea. Make the tax and regulatory pie. Well, so you testify on behalf of the Small Business Regulatory Freedom Act. So how would that act help business owners like you?
I would hope it would free up our time so we can use our time constructively, doing the things we need to do, not only for the business, but personally. I mean, it's not healthy to work 24/7, 365. It's not healthy. And that is what small business owners do. And if we could spend that time doing things that are more pleasurable and things to help grow us both business-wise and as a person, we would just be so much better off, and we could do more. We could go out and do more advertising and do more foot traffic. And like, for instance, we have a lot of housing developments coming up around here. If I didn't have all this other stuff to do, I could go out and hand out business cards and flyers. I could go to church more. I could spend more time with my family. But as a small business owner, we're already pressed for time, and there's got to be a way to make these rules and regulations to where we don't have to do so much time on that. We're seeing no real end results.
It would seem like, you started a business to try to satisfy a need in the market. In this case, livestock and pet supply. If you could be empowered to keep doing that and not, the regulatory stuff and the tax stuff are just eating away at that. And that's the way you're really creating a lot of value for your community and then probably get the most fulfillment. No one really gets a lot of fulfillment from doing their taxes and complying with regulations, I would think. So, the more we can empower you to do that, the better.
Yeah. We actually started the business as a way to keep me occupied after a miscarriage that we had in 2013. To help de-stress me, to give me something to do. But the rules and regulations really hindered the end result of that.
Yeah.
It didn't turn out as we had planned. We thought I would be happier, more relaxed, time to do what I enjoy, which is interacting with people. And I don't get to do very much of that. I have to really rush people in and out so I can come back to the office and do more stuff back here.
The act that you testified on, the Small Business Regulatory Freedom Act, if that were to pass, was the main benefit there that it would just free you up to work on your business because there'd be less regulation?
Yes. The So we don't see, with our government in general, we don't see that they do one thing better and not make another thing worse. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen here. I hope they don't change it to be good on the A side, but the B side of the album gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you went and testified in front of the House committee, House subcommittee. Not many people have done that in their life. So what made you want to testify? And then what was your main message when you did testify?
I have always been of the mindset and believe that if you aren't willing to be a part of the solution, you can't complain about the problem. If you don't like who the president is and you didn't vote, I don't want to hear it. If you don't like that the county passed this, that, or the other, and you didn't speak up when you had the chance, I'm not going to listen to you. Well, I'll listen to you, but it's going to come in here and go out there. So when I had that chance, I felt that that's what I had to do to stay true to what I believed.
And what was your message to the subcommittee members?
I hope I relayed the fact that small businesses are drowning.
Mm-hmm.
The economy is not as good as it was. And we won't even mention what COVID did to it. That I don't know if we will ever truly fully recover from that, to be honest with you. The only reason we didn't have to close is that my husband has a job that pays well enough that when I couldn't pay my bills, he could.
Mm-hmm.
And we are drowning in red tape. We don't need anything extra to worry about. We worry about enough. When I first started this, the new building we moved into, and we had so many plans and just things we wanted to do. And, you hear the phrase, the sky's the limit. That's not true. The limit is how far the red tape will let you go.
Yeah, that seems pretty un-American to me.
Well, you would think so, but I have nothing else good to say about that. I don't want to say or think anything I'm going to have to pray for forgiveness for when we get off of here.
Well, it's a podcast. You say whatever you want. When you did testify, did any representatives have questions for you?
They did. I was very surprised because I had kind of talked to Peter. Do you know Peter? He's a little guy. I call him a little guy. Everybody to me is a little guy if they're younger than me. He's a guy who originally contacted me, and he had said that, they really don't ask you any questions. They really don't talk to you unless you're an expert and you have something they want to know. So I actually turned to walk away, and they called me back. Then I turned again, and they said, "Oh, well, you're not going to get away that easily. We'll let you know when you can walk off." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to get to talk some more. I love talking. It's what I do best." And they seem to be sympathetic and understanding, which I did not expect because it is the government. And based on past experience, there's not a whole lot of friendliness that comes from that.
Good.
But it was a friendlier environment than I thought it would be. And they asked about how we got our name, and everybody got a good laugh out of that. So, yeah, it was not what I was expecting.
Well, how'd you get your name?
My husband is from New Zealand.
Oh, nice.
He has always had apparently allergies to everything that grows outside, including all the hay we have to do, which that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but hey, it's his nose that he has to keep red, not mine. And his favorite book when he was a little boy was The Little Bug That Went Cuckoo, and his nickname was Bug. And he took that and went with it and found something to put in front of Bug Barn that flowed off the tongue and read works. So that's how we got it.
That's great.
It's all about his allergies and his childhood. Yeah.
Well, like I said, not many people ever go and testify in front of a legislative committee. I got a sense, Gail, that you have a lot of confidence speaking in front of folks and conveying, your thoughts. But, how'd you feel about going and doing it?
I felt at peace. I did what I could. I said what I had to say, and then I have to go say it in front of more or say it again. I could do that. But I felt that I would not be able to sleep as well at night if I didn't speak up. People don't speak up. We speak up to ourselves, but not to the people that matter. And I believe if we did that more, maybe these people that we feel are out of touch wouldn't be so out of touch. We have become complacent. We have let people speak for us too long. And instead of just voting them and trusting them to speak like we think they should, maybe we need to let them know more of what it is we need them to do, instead of just letting them run free like a wild horse on the Outer Banks.
Well, I think that one of the main things that you kind of hit on is, I think there's no shortage of people who have opinions, yell at their, at their TV news, have arguments or discussions around the dinner table, but getting it outside of that to where it actually can make it to the decision makers is a huge gap. And that's being part of Americans for Prosperity, that's one of our main focuses, is to amplify the voices that are out there, to make sure that decision makers hear from the people who are being affected by the legislation they're passing, the regulations that they're imposing. Because, I think that sometimes legislators don't want to hear it, but a lot of times, sometimes they just haven't. And I think if we can mobilize people and amplify those voices, it just makes our democracy so much more representative of us.
I would never have known about this bill if Peter had not called me. So I think we need to try to encourage people to or find a way to get this stuff that is happening in Columbia or in Washington more out to the people. People need to know. They just did a school choice vote in South Carolina. Nobody really knew that was happening. They're doing a big insurance reform tort bill now. And I will say that one I have seen the most conversations about, but the other ones, you just really don't hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's hush hush. What happens there has to stay there. Well, for us to get what we need to be represented by, that adage of what happens there stays there cannot be anymore. We've got to be more involved.
Yeah, transparency and openness are key elements to having good government, and government that's responsive to people. And that's what we want.
And how do they know what to respond to if we don't tell them?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, that's why I'm glad that you went down there. And, I'm sure you probably entertained them too. But you adding your voice to that and kind of putting a face with it is super important.
The local representative came out afterwards and spoke to him, and he said, I'm glad you came down. I didn't even think to ask you. I see you every day, but I never thought to ask you how this would affect you and other people. He said, so I'm glad you came down. And I was quick to say, let me know if there's more I can do.
That's great. Well, what'd you tell? So to sum it up, what kind of difference would this kind of reform make for you practically?
Well, small businesses don't have the employees and the departments to do all these regulations and these rules and these applications and these permits. And when we have to do those, it takes time away from our business, which is money. It takes time away from our family, which is peace of mind, our church, which is our spiritual aspect. And as a person, we need that just like you need it or the corporation president need it. We need the same downtime. We need the same time to devote to building our business. And we can't do that if we're just drowning in paperwork.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, when it comes to regulation, there has to really be a balance, because regulation shouldn't stand in the way of someone being able to run their own business. When one person's running it all. Yeah, one person's running it all like you, having to do extra paperwork.
The only thing I don't do here is maintenance and stocking the shelves. That's it.
All right.
I do everything else. Good or bad, it's on me.
So when we pile on taxes and regulations, it just it makes it longer and longer and keeps you from the core business.
I'm really excited to see that the South Carolina is trying to reduce this income tax bill, the rate of income tax, because that will also free up more money that small business can invest in their well-being and their businesses.
No. Well, that'd be great.
So maybe I'll get to speak up about that.
You should.
That would be nice.
I think add your voice to it. You'd probably be a preferred voice at this stage. Well, look, Gail, I really appreciate you coming on with us and talking about your experience testifying, and then just all the, giving us a great perspective of someone who's running a small business and trying to make ends meet, but running, just being burdened down with all the regulations. So thank you for adding your voice to this.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Well, hey, if you liked this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe our channel on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend liberty and freedom. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.